Oh, you too.
Welcome everybody. This is your boy Rob C. We are back. We are back. We are back. Unveiling his and her truth, along with my co-host, Miss Francie, Miss Cena, Mr. Kamal. We are doing this a little bit different tonight. It's just going to be us four on here conversing on some topics that we thought were some good topics to talk and discuss about. So hope you guys enjoy. It's just going to be us on here conversing amongst each other, just giving our expertise and giving our knowledge and thoughts on these subject matters. You feel me? So hope you
Yes.
guys enjoy, and we're gonna start this off right. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this on to Miss Francie so she can start us off with our first topic.
All right, so holidays are coming up, right? So Thanksgiving is next week. We almost are like right at a week before Thanksgiving. And even though we're in quarantine times, some of y'all might be going to people's houses and partaking and breaking bread with folks, right? So the thing that we want to talk about is meeting the parents, right? And everybody's situation is different, so it might not be your parents, it might be your auntie, your grandma, whoever, your brothers, your sister, your kids, right? Like, when is it cool for the person you're dating or involved with to meet your family? When does that happen? So I can start. Like, I'll tell y'all. So for me, I grew up with, I'm gonna jump right in, right? There we go.
Yeah, just
I'm
jump,
giving y'all
jump.
time. I'm giving y'all time. So for me, I always grew up with people like in my house, right? So my friends came over on a regular basis. I was involved with stuff at church, and I didn't just have friends that were girls. So I always had guy friends as well. So for me, it's never been like it's like really, really special for somebody to meet my mom, because they just are like, that's been normal. That's just a part of life. So it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, you met my mom, so now you're special, right? Like, you can meet my mama. Like, if she at the house, she at the house. Okay, cool. And she knows, right, that just because somebody meets her doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, my daughter is really into this. Like, no, that's like not what it is, right? But at the same token, my daughter, because I have a daughter, right? Like, if she meets you and meets you in the capacity of like, I'm truly introducing you as somebody that I'm dating or that I'm involved with, that is a very big deal, right? So my dog, you might meet my mom long before you ever meet my child. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I think for me, well, let me say. So I think for me, my standards are a bit more strict. So since I've been dating since what 13, 14, and so in what the 30 plus years or so that I've been dating, my mother has only met like three of my girlfriends,
Facts.
and yeah, and so like so in the context of meeting my parents, I think things are a little bit different now, obviously, because I'm a father myself. So um, at this point, if you can meet my daughter, you can meet my parents, right? And you're not meet my daughter unless we're official, right? Because I'm very, very, very particular about who I introduce my daughter to in terms of like who I date. Uh, since my divorce separation, she's only met one woman that I've dated, and we were pretty serious. And that woman was actually the last person that I introduced to my parents. So for me, um, I have very, very, very strict guidelines on who meets my parents because I think when you're dating and you don't know who clicks with your parents, right? So if I got to cut somebody off or they cut me off, however it goes, I don't want it to be something that's like uncomfortable, where my mom's like, oh, wow, I really liked her, or my pops is like, well, my pops doesn't really care. It's more so my mom. She's like, I really liked her and, da, 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 da. Now, usually, again, if you can meet my daughter, you can meet my parents. And it's not it's less than a handful of women who've done that.
So maybe I say I feel like, gosh, yeah, y'all make me feel like I'm stricter than you, come on. So I couldn't date. So growing up, they met the guy I dated in high school out of rebellion. They finally met him officially when I needed an escort for the debutante ball my senior year. So on the low, we had dated probably since I was 16. We had dated for at least a good year and a half by the time they finally met him. Because I dated a couple before him, somewhat high school term dating, and they never met him. So I take that back. There was one guy I tried to secretly date in band my freshman year, and he walked me home from band practice one day. We thought we was gonna be cute and take the long route. And my daddy pulled up on us in the van on his way home from work. He seen us walking from behind and pulled up on us.
What'd he do though?
He snatched me in the car.
What
You
happened?
probably want to stuff
he
them in the
just-
trunk.
He let the dude go. He let the dude stand there looking stupid and put me in the car, and we went on to the house. No words were said. Just go into your room. Just go. So it's like from that moment on, just that how they were. I didn't bring anybody around. Like they had nicknames for the guys that they did meet. They've met 2 guys, and in my 16 years of dating, they've met 2 men, and that was high school and undergrad. And it was like a good year or more before they ever officially met the guy. And it was awkward ways of how they meet these people, because when they met my ex in high school, they was like, okay, he going to vacation Bible school with us. So my parents is real old school. When we got to church, they introduced him to the pastor as this her little friend. It wasn't no such thing as a boyfriend.
Label number 1.
This her little friend. He go to school with her. That was it. And then once the pastor met him, he preached a whole sermon about him. So yeah, that's why I was like, I don't bring dudes around the church. Nope. Don't bring dudes around church. Don't bring dudes around the parents. I feel like for me, just with my past experiences, I don't want them to be embarrassed by my dad, because my dad is brutal. My dad, I hate to say it, and you know, he's the same complexion. Him and my ex in high school, both chocolate. He called that dude a little monkey, little gorilla monkey. And then my ex in college, they met him when they surprised me with my car on Valentine's Day. He slept over, but thank God he was fully dressed when they did a pop-up. They drove to Greensboro and did a pop-up on me. So yeah, he was dressed, but my dad's first comment to him was, you ain't got no belt for your pants. I could see everything. You ain't got no belt. Won't no hello, how you doing? His pants was sagging. That was it.
Go dad.
So,
Dad.
so yeah, that was his thing. And so it's like now I just don't bring nobody around. Like I haven't had a long term in years, but even to my standards, it's gonna take months for you to meet anybody, maybe even a year. That's just been the running thing, because I know how they are. I tried to tell them about somebody that I met in the lounge that I had went out with a couple of times, and my mom instantly got attached. And I was like, see, and then she started asking me, so how's your friend? Have y'all been out anymore? No, it's done. It's over. It was a few dates. That was it. It's over. But they get like, she gets so attached so quickly. So it's like, I don't even bother telling them that I've gone out with anybody.
So just quick clarifying question, Cena. When you said you don't want them to be embarrassed by your dad, do you mean you don't want them to get embarrassed by him, or that you don't want to be embarrassed by him?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Just considering that they had nicknames. He had nicknames for the little boys. So that's one way. I don't want them to feel embarrassed, especially taking the church and be like, that's a little friend, But no, he can be embarrassing, because he will literally sit there. Like my mom could be trying to get to know him, and he'll be like, can I eat? Can we eat now? Like, so it's like, I don't even want to go through that. Like, he brutal. My brother don't care. My mom was nice, but my daddy is brutal. So.
Yeah, see, I got the Cena experience, but a little bit different. So me, like all my serious relationships were like in adulthood, you know what I mean? And so Sorry about that. So basically, with me, my my dad's deceased. So my dad passed away when I was 21. So my dad never gave me that talk. Like when I went on my first date in freshman high school, I said, Dad, what am I supposed to do? He was like, you go to the movie, you take her home. And I was like, okay, simple as that. But my mom is the tough person. Like she is the person that speaks her mind. She's the person that's going to tell her honest truth without caring how that other person feels. So for me, you got to be very special in order for me to meet my mother, because one of my girlfriends of the past, I said, hey, Mom, what do you think about her? Verbatim, this is what she said. I do not have to like her. You do. You have to deal with it. I said,
Come on, Mom.
wait a minute. I said, wait, say that again. She said, I don't have to like her. I don't have to deal with her. That's you. And I was like, oh, okay. So you don't like her? No, I don't. But you got to deal with her. I was like,
Wow.
so I took that as, okay, do I really care how my mom feels about my significant other? Or, that's when I had to have a conversation with myself, like, damn, Mom just told me straight up, she don't like this woman. Then coming down the road, she was right. And so
Right.
that's the funnier part. So it's like, I really respect her honesty and her bluntness. So that's why for me, I make that decision in essence, if I really feel she's special enough to meet her. Because like Sheena said, like with her father, my mother is going to be brutally honest, and she's going to really tell you how she feels about you. Like literally, she told a woman, she said in front of me, you don't care that he's a bigger man. This is my mom now. Wow. She was like, he's a bigger man. He's not the healthiest person in the world. So like, what do you see about him? Like, what do you think is attractive about him? I'm sitting right there. I'm not lying. This was in my mother's house. So
Damn.
For her,
wow.
I'm like, yo, I would have literally been like, Mary, we're not doing this today.
So literally, I'm sitting there like, God damn, like you're my mother. You're supposed to be like, this woman wants to know, like, what are your intentions? Because her thing is, if you're not really intentionally trying to and genuinely liking me for who I am, then you need to get the hell on. That's just her. And she can see through that. And so that's why I'm like, if you're, for me, I got to know that, yeah, you are very special in order to meet that woman, because she's brutally honest.
It's funny you mentioned like how brutally honest your mom was, because I had like my dad's family, his side of the family, they were worse. And yep. I understood as I got older where he got it from, because Thanksgiving, I kid you not, my cousins used to bring women to the house, like whatever their little slide was at the time, that holiday. And I remember my cousin bringing a plus size woman for Thanksgiving. Oh. And she ate her food. But then every time we looked up, my grandma kept noticing, like, she always in the kitchen. So I don't know if she kept getting multiple plates or something.
Oh my God.
But then she came in there after she had like a couple of plates and then dessert and all that stuff. She came back in there and she wasn't sloppy with hers. Like she was tall. So she was plus size, but she wasn't like all over the place or nothing like that. But she came in there and told him, like, her and my cousin went to the store because she was still hungry. She wanted a snack. So they went to the store, came back. She had she got some tomatoes or something, came in the kitchen with all the women. That's what you don't do, is come with the women in the family in the kitchen. She came in there, sat down, grabbed a plate, asked for a knife, and started slicing up the tomatoes and started eating tomatoes and lettuce or something like that. I don't know. But they talked about her on the low in front of her face. It's like, how grandmas be, baby, you hungry? You still hungry? I mean, there's some more food in there if you still hungry. And then when she left out to go mess with my cousin, they was like, child, did you see how much food that child ate? Her ass bigger than mine. I was done. I was like, yeah, I'm never bringing nobody. One guy has met extended family. But that was it. I said, nope. Mm-mm.
But
No.
the funny
Well,
thing
you
to
know
say,
what? Well, you know what I was going to say. So that's the funny thing, right? So, and I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I have to prep people before meeting my extended family.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like they have to be special to me for me to introduce them to my parents, but they got to be ready because my family's crazy, and it's like, you know, me and my cousin have always talked about this. It's like, you know, a lot of times, like, you know, especially with his wife, you know, when they first started dating, he had to prep her because, you know, she's like super bougie, you know, grew up in Potomac, you know, all this stuff, and he's like, okay, look, I got to tell you, like, my family's kind of crazy, you know, so you need to be ready. And I'm just reading the thing. And yeah, man, I mean, like, I got one uncle, like, this nigga's off the hook. Like, he literally asked my ex-wife one time, damn, y'all only got one child? You need some more? And I'm like, Uncle Rob, who the fuck you talking to? Right? But in my mind, and then, you know, there's some other people. So yeah, there's like a level that you got to get somebody to, well, for me, before I can get them meeting my extended family, because I mean, it could be a deal breaker.
that's how I
You know what I'm
feel
saying?
about my mom, though, man. Like, dude, you got to be ready. Like, when I tell women like she's that brutally honest, like a woman that she's brutally honest, they be like, "Oh, I can handle it. I'm good." You know, just I'm like, look, I'm trying to tell you because she's gonna say something out her mouth that you're gonna be like, "What in the hell did that come from?" Or like, "Why did you say that?" But at the same time, I think it's like a sizing up metric for her, and it's like, to me, I sit there and I be amazed, like, you really be saying this stuff and don't be caring. You know what I mean? Like, she don't be caring. She be in her house coat with a bonnet
Yeah.
on. Don't care about her appearance. She be looking like, don't take this the wrong way, Fran, but Fran on a happy hour, ready to go to bed, and still be giving them the business like it's
On it
nothing.
ready.
Right, like it's nothing. And it's like, yo, like, really? Like, I'm your son. Like, I took this for 40 years. I know who you are. This woman doesn't know you, and you giving it to her in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's like, it is what it is, man.
Listen, so one, I'm with her because that's why I will rock the bonnet, because you need to get all of
Right,
it from the
right.
beginning. But right, so we're talking about kind of the family piece and those dynamics that are at play. I'm wondering, right, when we talk about like parents saying things that are tough, or you know, family members saying things that are tough, right? Like, what have any of y'all been in like a tussle? Not like a physical tussle, but like it's the first time folks are meeting each other, right? And your person, like one of your family members, says something, and the
Mm-hmm.
person who you're with is like, "Oh, I don't really care that we in this relationship. Like, I've been a woman or I've been a man longer than I've been dealing with you, so we about to handle this, right?" Like, like how what has that looked like? Has there ever been like some kind of like family altercation,
Nah,
run up, something?
nah, but I will say this. Like, my sister has never really cared for my ex-wife. I think, like, if she had the ability to stomp her ass on the ground, she would probably do it. And then my cousin, who passed in 2009, actually, yeah, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, like, the majority of my first female cousins, they didn't really like my ex-wife, and I think, like, if she would have said the wrong thing, um, you know, they would have beat the shit out of her. Like, real talk. I didn't realize how bad they didn't like her until, well, much later, you know, until, you know, I think we separated, and it was like, you know, I never liked that bitch. No way. And all that shit starts coming out. But nah, I think like my sister, they've known each other since undergrad. They came in together in undergrad, never liked each other. So, yeah, I don't think so. To answer your question, Fran, it hasn't come to that, but could have come to that. You know, had the right or wrong words been said. Oh yeah, for sure, yeah,
Fran,
absolutely.
I'm gonna go ahead and piggyback. The one woman that my mom said she didn't care for, I actually was about to propose to her, right? Yeah, don't make that look, Cena. So, anyways, so we were talking one day, and she happened to call my mother about, like, talking about finances, and she was like jumping the gun or something, right? My mother said,
Wait, she called your mama to talk about money?
yes, I promise you.
Mm.
I didn't know about
Mm.
this until my mother called me. So she called my mother at talking about finances, like trying to do like a wedding, or just thought like just planning with her. She thought she was being proactive or something, right?
Wait, I'm sorry. Call on me.
Go ahead, Frank.
He called your mama to talk about wedding planning. Were y'all
And I
engaged?
haven't even proposed yet.
Oh,
I
I
haven't.
just needed a point of clarification.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Okay, so she goes and calls my mom talking about what she thought would be nice and this, that, and the third. My mom, friend, and Cena, as a woman, my mom told her, "Do you even have a job to even to do what you're trying to do?"
I like your mom. I love your
She
mom.
said, "What do you mean? Don't think I'm going to invest in something that I'm not a part of. I'm just helping my son out to help him because he says he loves you. That don't mean I love you." I said, Lord have mercy.
I have moms.
So here's the quorum that came from that. She got disrespectful to my mother over the phone.
Ooh.
And so my mom called me back and said, "Hey, Rob," or she calls me Robert. She was like, "Robert, did you know your girlfriend called me talking about some finances and about a wedding? Did you propose to her?" I was like, "No." "Why would she call you about that?" And she was like, "I don't know, but I told her she needs to get a job and she need to talk to her parents about that first before she calls my phone." I said, "I'm gonna take care of that." So I called, I went to her in person. I said, "Look, you went to my mom and talked to her about finances for a wedding, and I'm not even proposed to you yet." And this was the end. This was the slippery slope that ended this relationship. And yeah, went big argument. So here's the flip side to that. Her family didn't like me because I would play in clubs, you know what I'm saying, being a musician. And her dad was a preacher or a bishop. So I went to her church one Sunday because, just being the guy that I am, I want to, pray with who I'm with and spiritually align. This man said over the pulpit, "Son, you cannot be leading my daughter down the devil's work. You either get out the club and come and play in the church, or you need to leave my daughter alone." I looked at him, I looked at her, I looked at him,
Wow.
and I walked out that church. And when I walked out the church and she called me, she's like, "Well, why did you leave?" I was like, there's no way in hell that a man is going to tell me about myself that doesn't know me and know my relationship with God, number one. Number two, ain't no motherfucking body going to tell me I don't have the Holy Ghost or whatever you think I am because y'all judging me. And she said, "Well, you don't have it in this," it went back and forth. And I was like, "You know what? We're done." I told her that and I was like, "We're done. Don't call me." I was done. So, yeah.
You know what? That sounds similar to what happened to my ex in high school when I did take him to church because we did a youth Sunday for the first time. And, the pastor, his sermon touched on the youth of today. And he cool people because he had a teenage son. So it's like he's not the type to criticize, but he was that day. But he made some comments about, the boys and the pants sagging or just them being rappers or something like that. And my ex, lo and behold, was one of the neighborhood rappers. Like he was a very well-known rapper at our school and in the area. So, and he wasn't the type, that was his dream, music. So I already knew he wasn't gonna go to college. And I was a damn near straight A student. And he was from the different side of the track. all the more reason why my parents didn't really care for him either, because he was one of them boys that looked like he was about 20 when he was about 16, facial hair and all that. So that day after the youth service, like he brought one of his friends with him to kind of help out, because he really didn't go to church like that. His aunt and his uncle were very heavily to church, but he didn't go to church like that. And so him coming to church was a stretch anyway for me to get him to come in the first place. So when the sermon geared some things towards him that he felt attacked him personally, like literally he didn't stay to eat or nothing. Him and his friend dipped at the church, and I happened to catch them in the I can't say parking lot because it's a country church, but outside the church before they left.
Gravel.
The gravel. There you go, the gravel lot. I happened to catch up with them before they dipped out. And I was like, yo, what's the problem? Da, da, da. Like, he swore straight to my face. He was like, I ain't coming back over here no more. Like, that ish wasn't cool. Like, what the hell was that about? I said, whoa, player. First of all, we on church ground. I was raised in the church, so, I was always checking people back then, like, oh, whoa, calm down. He ain't my daddy, so what you worried about? But because my parents were, involved in the church and stuff like that, like, they ain't care for him no way. So that was like the nail in the coffin with him and the religious piece. So at that age, at 16, 17, you got the rose-colored glasses. So you're not studying the religion piece. But of course, now I have to consider it a little bit, what their religion looking like, more so for myself, but a part of it for my parents, because now my mom's a reverend. At the time, she was not. She became a minister when we started dating, ironically. But now she's a full-blown reverend. So it's like, she's a lot more critical about that piece now. So it's like, now I'm very careful about that. The religion is a conversation, because I'm like, I don't want you to come over here and get embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying people don't have a relationship with God, but me personally, I've always had to start considering that in my adult life, because I swear that's one thing I've noticed that they will tear into. If I start talking about a guy, especially if he has kids, like, they'll start looking at that, because of course, I was not given the sex talk. We didn't talk about sex in my house. So of course, coming up, it was, you didn't do it. You follow what the Bible say, you go in order, blah, blah, blah. Well, clearly, some of our friends in high school didn't do that. So it's like, as an adult, I feel like it's gotten worse. So I have to consider certain little things. And that's why I'm so strict about who meets my parents or who meets anybody. You can't meet my family if you can't even get past my parents. I'm gonna be honest. Like, if you can't get past mama, daddy, or at least mama, like, you can't even meet a cousin. I don't care if they're my best friend cousin, because I got a cousin that live closer, that's closer to me than my parents are, really. They don't even get to meet nobody, because I know certain things. Religion is a big one that gets torn into every time. When they have kids, that's something that they look at. Because I remember being interested in a guy who, in college, we were here, but when we lost track and found each other again, he already had 2 kids with 2 different women. Because I grew up in that environment, my father had 3 other women and kids before he met my mom. So I grew up in that multi-baby mama environment, and my mother, to this day, she does not want me in that same situation. She don't want me, if she can help it, she want a dude that ain't got no kids. If she can help it, if she could pick the litter, he wouldn't have no kids. Or if he did, it would be 1. So I have to consider some things. Now, I'm not going to choose 100% solely on what they want, because it's about me. Like Rob Mom said, like, you the one that's got to like them. At the end of the day, it's your choice. But, I have to say that it has played a part in who I choose to bring around them, because of their like how they act, like how they are. It plays a part. My daddy can't say nothing. My daddy can't say nothing, but my mother, she will vocally say something like, he got how many? Now, I've always been like, well, as long as he's doing what he's supposed to do for his kids, and he's got a cordial relationship with these children's mothers, I'm okay if he has 1, 2, maybe. But she don't see it like that. So I'm like, yeah, that's why I want to tell you when I decide to date. I keep it to myself for as long as I can, until you reach, like, for me, it got to be past months. Like, it's probably gonna be damn near a year into it before I take you home, or it's got to be close to that seriousness or like engagement type talk before you get to be meeting a lot of people, because I know how they are. So
how important is it for your parents, I guess, for everybody to think about this, to like your significant other?
It would be nice, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm grown, man. So I'm a dad. You know what I'm saying? I'm a dad. So really that shit's out the window for me. It's not, it would be nice, and again, I think I'm pretty particular about who my people meet. And I mean, honestly, if my mom didn't really care for the woman I was dating, I probably wouldn't be caring for her anyway. You know what I mean? Because, my mom and I are usually pretty eye to eye on that. But let's say, by chance that happened, I'm grown, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, my parents are not about to dictate. They're not about to dictate that. You know what I mean? I'm a parent. I'm a dad. So it would look crazy for me to have my parents dictate who I date, like all that stuff. I mean, they may have certain opinions or concerns about, like, maybe bringing somebody around my child too soon. But at the end of the day, y'all ain't paying my bills. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't paying this tuition for my daughter. I'm my own entity. I'm my own man, right? So from that standpoint, it matters very, very, very little.
Okay. So no influence, really.
Absolutely not. No,
Okay.
I mean, it's nice. It's nice. But
Okay.
again, I'm a grown ass man. So, like, the only person that has an opinion that may sway, it may influence, have some influence on who I date, is my daughter, right? Because if you can't get along with my daughter and my daughter don't fuck with you, then I can't fuck with you. You know what I
That's
mean?
real.
Because we're a package. We're a package
That's
deal.
real. That's real.
So, yeah.
yeah, I'm there too. Like, I mean, I would love for my mother and father to like whoever I'm involved with, and for the most part, they do. But if they didn't, right? Like, for me, what matters is, can you all respect each other, right? Like, so as long as there's no disrespect, you don't have to be besties. Like, y'all don't need to hang out and go golfing or, do things together. Like, all that is super cute, but it's not necessary.
Not required.
My child lives with me though, right? Like, that is my person. That is my little broke best friend. And you like
Word up.
you need to be able to get along with her and her with you, right? Like, so that dynamic matters a whole lot to me and will far supersede any like concerns that my parents have, right? Like, I care about what my child thinks, because my parents will go to their own house, will, go wherever, right? Like, and I'm still in my own space and in this space with this person that I'm with, and my child will still be here, right? So that matters a significant amount to me.
I would definitely agree, because I mean, like I said, the older I've gotten, I'll consider things with my parents, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's got to deal with you on a daily. I'm not interested in dealing with somebody that y'all are in love with if I don't even like them. Like, but I did date someone in college who his mother completely hated me. She fell in love with me when we broke up. Like, I remember being in a car with him, and she called him, and I guess his uncle snitched on him and said he hadn't been staying at his house during a lot. He was staying with me quite a bit the first year we were together. And when his mom got wind of it, she called him asking questions like, you ain't out here with this fast ass girl. She probably got you trapped. She ain't pregnant, is you? Mind you, she didn't know I was in the car when she was saying all this to him on the phone. And she was that loud that I heard her verbatim through the phone. And it was so awkward because he didn't say nothing to check her. Like, he was like, no, she's not pregnant, chill. That was pretty much all he said. Like, there was no, she's not like that, blah, blah. Mind you, I was doing way better than he was in college at the time. So there was no like reassuring, like, no, she's not that type of girl. Like, she went about nothing like that. It was just, nah, she ain't pregnant, chill out. So she didn't start really caring for me, I think, I was out with him for his birthday with their family. I met his entire, like mom, dad, sister, they always came up for his birthday. That year I happened to meet him, like maybe a year later. And his grandfather passed away while we were in the movie theater at the movies for his birthday. And when we came out, he found out. So they were having a family moment. I was trying to console him before they took over. And I was like, after that, she kind of started liking me. I don't know what it was about me that she felt like I was trying to trap her son because he wasn't staying at home every night. I didn't understand the tie between the two. But yeah, his mom was somewhere along the lines of Rob's mom. Like, she did not care if you were sitting right there. She's gonna talk junk about her son to me. Then when she didn't like me, she gave me the side eye, would make comments to her daughter about me while I was staying there. And I spent the night in their home Easter weekend. He invited me for their Easter weekend with the family church and stuff. I slept in a room right next to his. She ain't bothered me, surprisingly, but she had some comments during the daytime. She ain't say nothing about me staying in a room right next to her son while they were asleep. But it was interesting dating someone whose parents didn't like me and they had never met me. They only heard about me. They had never met me at that point. But yeah.
I don't have an issue with my mom not liking somebody I'm dating. I have a very big issue with the person I'm dating's parents not liking me.
I do too.
Agreed.
I've never had that issue before her. She's the only parent in my history of dating that did not like me.
I've never had it happen, but the idea of it is not okay for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the opinion she had of me either, because I knew that's not how I was brought up.
Yeah, that actually happened. I'm sorry.
You good?
Yeah, I was gonna say that actually happened to me with my last relationship. It was very similar to kind of like the woman I was dating. Seriously, her background is kind of similar to yours, Cena, where she was kind of she was raised in the church. Her father was a deacon. They had like really old school values, and she was a bit younger. So I'm not gonna say that they didn't like me, but dating a divorced guy who's like over 10 years your senior with a daughter, I don't think actually sat well with them like at all. And no matter how much she tried to, kind of sway me a different way, like, no, they like you. I'm like, no,
You weren't going.
no, not for real. No, they don't. But yeah, that's all I got on that.
So quick question. This is like, it's on and off topic. When is it okay to have sex in your parents' house?
Wait a minute. When it's okay? Or better yet?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Well,
that's a good question. When you're married, but even at that, it's still not comfortable.
It's awkward. It would be awkward.
Fuck,
it's
boy.
very awkward.
It is
never very awkward. I mean, don't get
never been awkward.
It happened. It wasn't as awkward when I was a teenager, but they didn't know about it. But like when you actually have somebody come by, when you're sneaking through the window, it don't feel awkward at all. But but a significant other, I mean, even as an adult, it's hard. It's very, very hard. I don't feel comfortable with it, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't feel comfortable. I've never been in that position. They did allow my ex to stay in their home one time, and he was in the room across the hall from mine, but I dare not open that door because my father was the type that he's dark skinned, by the way, and he wears a navy blue robe. So he was the type that lurked around in the dark in the house. So yeah, he's scared the crap out of me a few times sitting in the dark and you trying to sneak food out. Yeah. So I dare not open that door while they were asleep, even though he slept hard and light at the same time. Their room was on the opposite side of the stairs. I still didn't open that door. Like, I made sure he went in the computer room, the guest room across from me. When they went to bed, he went in that room, shut the door. We texted throughout the night, but I ain't opened that door. Like, I might have went to the bathroom one time and I instantly came back and went in my room and shut the door and locked the door. Cause I was like, I'm not about to do that. Nope.
Friend, I'm like you. I don't feel awkward. Like, We had now. My mom is old school. We had to sleep in different rooms, but I still got it in, so I didn't feel awkward.
Maybe my mom is in a different space. If she like, I think things were different when I was younger, right? But when the older that I've gotten, she's kind of like, you grown, you have your own house, you pay
Right.
bills. It's not like I don't know you having sex, like
Right.
whatever, you know what I mean? Like it is what it is, and even down to the like, she's not a oh, you all need to have separate rooms. Like there was I think like the heat or something went out in my ex's house when I was in town, and I was staying with her because I was in town. And he came over and stayed at the house and stayed in the room with me. Like, and she was like, all right, y'all. Like
Right.
my mom is, maybe she's just different because my mom is the one who's like, are your pajamas cute? Are they appropriate? And I'm like, girl, but ain't nobody worried about that right now. But she's like, you better put on cute pajamas. Like she's just that person. So maybe my orientation to those
encouraging.
kind of like, all right,
Has it happened in their house? Sure. They probably wasn't home, but it's happened. Some sex in the house, in the parents' house, in their room has happened. They weren't home.
That I can't do.
Yeah. That has happened, but they weren't home.
I can't do that. That is the no-go, like I can't. Like that's a no-no. Like I'm not engaging in the space that is sacred and theirs. I refuse. Won't do it.
Next subject.
I've done it. I'll just leave it at that. And I'm not proud of it. But yes.
I'm currently judging both of you. I still like you, but I'm currently
Hey, you gonna judge us 3?
oh my God. I'm judging you.
You're gonna judge us 3 then, because yeah.
I know there's
Fine. Virtual high five. Judge us all.
Oh my gosh.
Right with the 23rd Psalms above me.
Listen, it just feels like I'm like doing something, like it just feels like they're like there with me, like hello.
Oh, no.
Too much. It's too much. It's too much.
On that note,
yes, on that note.
So, Fran, what's the next subject?
Yeah, I mean it's a opportunity to shift, right? But
I see some pleading the fifth in the comments on YouTube. We're not alone.
I know my judgment's gonna come back though. So, we talked about meeting parents. When does that happen? When you meet folks' families, right? And we wanted to be able to bring back for just a bit the conversation that we had last time about marriages, right? So you do meet families, you do, things hit off well, like kids like the person, families like the person or don't, but you just keep moving, right? And we're now in this space where we're, seriously committed and thinking about marriage, right? Like still, is it like in 2020, is it worth it? Like, is it truly worth it to get married? Do you need that piece of paper? Do you need that legal document? Do you need that like before God kind of moment? Like, does it matter?
It matters and it doesn't matter. And I forgot where we left off with this last month. But I feel like for myself, I want to kind of come back and like clear some things up. So, when we had this chat last time, I was just really speaking about like logically, when you put it down on, on paper side by side, with the percentages, it doesn't seem like it's worth it, right? And I think for a lot of people, especially folks like myself and Fran and others who have been through a divorce, financially, emotionally, it just didn't feel like it's worth it, right? But I'll say this, from my standpoint, I think maybe if I didn't have a daughter, I wouldn't necessarily think that it was worth it. But that the fact that I don't want to raise my daughter in a household that where you don't see like a household that's not filled with love, where the mother and the father respect each other. And honestly, I think it's important for kids to see that, right? Just love between their parents, so they kind of understand how to conduct themselves accordingly, you know, whenever they decide to take that step. And actually, honestly, I think it influences, you know, eventually the way that your kids may respect or, you know, feel about you, because they see your significant other treating you a certain way. And if your significant other is treating you with love, then I think in turn, your children do the same way subconsciously. So all that to say, I question it a lot of times. I definitely question the benefits of it, but all in all, you know, I still think it's worth it. Not so much from a religious standpoint or a financial standpoint, but I think just from an overall emotional and mental and spiritual health standpoint for you and your kids. So.
But do you need to call it marriage, right? Like, does it have to be the formal union of marriage to accomplish the things that you're saying, right? Like,
oh, you know, I don't think so, because I think I made that very clear last time. But at the same time, I think again, as a father, it would set a great example for my daughter, because I mean, let's face it, as parents, I don't think that, I mean, like, life happens, you know, having kids out of wedlock is not uncommon. It happens, right? But, and I wouldn't love my daughter any less if she did have a child out of wedlock or multiple children out of wedlock. But I think my preference would be for her to have a healthy marriage and have children with the man, hopefully, because, you know, again, 21st century, but the man that she decides to try to spend the rest of her life with or build a future with. So
I think,
but for me, I don't need that shit.
Fran, I'm gonna talk from a single man with no children. So for me, I don't think. Let me rephrase this. I think the wording might be different for me. I value marriage. I desire to be married at some point, but I don't see it as a necessity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think as a younger man, I had this, you know, this map or this thought process. At 25, I'm gonna be married, have kids, you know, do whoop de woo, you know. That was my thought process back then. Now, as life has changed and I evolved, things I've gone through, I'm like, look, if that happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm actually okay. I'm at peace with that. But I value marriage. I value the spiritual part. I value the relationship part. I value the covenant. I value what it stands for. And I'm not going to go into something that, number one, I feel the other person doesn't value as much as me or more, or genuinely doesn't value me as I value them. Secondly, let's be real, for you two that have been married, it's an investment. So
not just financial, it is an emotional investment.
It's an investment. So look at it how you want to look at it as an investment. It invests time, energy, emotion, mental health, finances, everything. It's an investment. And if I'm going to invest myself into something that serious and I'm going to give my all, I'm not looking to lose, even though life happens. But I better make sure that this person's thinking the same lines as, this is an investment. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I desire. Like, we're on the same page, and this is what it is. Like, that's just where I'm at. Like, if it happens, great. I value it. I desire it. But is it a necessity at this point in my life? I don't think so.
for me, like Rob said, I have to look at it from a single female, never been married, no kids standpoint as well. Um, yeah, like Rob, you know, when I was coming up, I did have this vision in my mind that, oh, I'm gonna be married by 30, I'm gonna have my kids, da 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 da, because I always, the things I saw coming up with my parents, not to pick on either parent over the other, I saw no physical harm, but I did see a lot of mental and verbal abuse happen. And it did, like Mal said, you know, you have a vision for your kid because you don't want her to, you want her to see the benefit of marriage or to see the good part of it. I didn't really see healthy relationships growing up. So some would argue that, well, why do you even care to want to be married if you've never seen a good relationship in your life 30 plus years down the road? But for me, I guess I've always been somewhat of a hopeless romantic in that department. Like I've always been like, no, there's somebody out there for me. Somebody's meant for me. I don't think I was put here to be alone. And then you start hearing the sermons and the scriptures of, well, some people were given the gift of singleness. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, don't do this to me. Like, you hear stuff like that. You like, wait a minute. But the older I've gotten, when I got closer to graduating college, I started seeing that, I said, well, geez, I started hearing a lot more people say, well, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him what you had planned. That was my life, because I had thought to myself, I'm going to be married by 30. I started seeing people my age and younger than me that graduated high school after me getting married, having their kids. And I always, because of the stuff I saw growing up and the treatment I received with the different extended outside kids and all that stuff, I always tell myself I would never want to have my kids at my parents' age, because there was such a communication gap because of the age gap. They had us when they were late 30s. So now my parents are in that 70s bracket, and me and my brother are in the early to mid 30s. And it's like, we had a lot of, I know for me, being the youngest of all the kids, there was a lot of bumping heads because I could not live like a normal child. I was very sheltered. I couldn't go to football games. I had to join performing arts activities to get out the house. So like I had jobs. I was in 10 different clubs just so I could be away from the house and do things, get away with stuff when no one was looking. So it's like, I always vowed I would never have my kids that old because I didn't want those problems. I wanted it to be a lot more open, like, no, I don't want my kids to be afraid to come to me. So same thing with marriage. I'm like, my parents got married in their early 30s. They just didn't have kids until a few years down the road. And I'm just like, 30s, I didn't have no problem with that. But I was like, I kept telling myself over and over again, I don't want to be still out here 50 plus looking for marriage, But I've come to a point now where I'm like, if it happens, it'll happen when it's time to happen. But there is still that small inkling that's like, okay, I'm like, Jesus ain't no player hater. He gonna hook me up before I get too old to care. Like, that's just how I thought, for years. So it's like I'm getting more comfortable with being to myself, and just letting things come as they may. But I definitely, for me, I still believe in the sanctity of marriage and the covenant and everything that it stands for, that I was taught that it stood for growing up. And I do still see the importance of having everything on paper, because I've seen situations where things weren't on paper and it went all the way downhill for a couple of people involved, financially, overall, mentally, financially, everything, and so I still believe in it because I'm like, nah, I don't want to shack up. That's something I was always taught, and that's something I chose to believe in. My parents threw a lot of Bible at me growing up, but that was one thing I did choose to believe in, that I would not want to shack up with someone for the rest of my life. Like, no, there's going to be a ring on it, because that's part of the reason why me and my ex in college didn't make it. He wanted to go one way after college. I wanted to go another. And I was always taught, don't chase no man. If there ain't a ring on your finger, you're not moving where he going just because he want to go there. So I took that and kind of ran with that, with my 20s. Like I made sure not to follow a guy just because I thought I was in love. So I'm just like, no, I want the kit and caboodle. And I feel like that's still possible even in today's society, where you have so many who don't even believe in marriage anymore, or who barely believe in dating, don't even know how to date, let alone get married and stay married. So I still have hope that exists and that it's important and there are benefits. And, I'm one of the type that hopes for the long haul. I don't believe in divorce and stuff like that. But if it had to be, it had to be, but just from a single person standpoint, I still believe in it. I still believe it can happen.
So for me, like, I'm gonna piggyback off Facina though. She said something that was profound. Like for me and my parents didn't show a good marriage at all. It wasn't healthy at all. Like I saw emotional abuse, I saw physical abuse, and sometimes it was mental as well. And I think for me, my parents settled for marriage. They got married because they had my brother. Plain and simple. My mom side of the family, her parents were like, if you're gonna have this child, you and him got to be together. Like it was like kind of forced that because she had a child as a sophomore at Jackson State, had to drop out of school. Yeah, my dad's the alma mater too. Dad's there, went there too. And for them, I had to ask my mom after my dad died. I was like, "Did you ever were in love with my dad? Like, did you ever love him?" And she honestly says, she said, "I loved him for who he is and who he was, but no, I never really loved him like romantically." And I was like, "So why did y'all stay together for 30 plus years?" She said, "Because I had you and your brother, and we just made it work." And when I heard that, I was like, "So wait a minute, like y'all were married 30 plus years and you really didn't love each other like that?" And she was like, "Well, my parents told us that we had to get married. We just did. We were young kids and we did as we were told. Me and your dad didn't really love each other. And I knew that. But when I had your brother, I loved him. And I didn't want him to grow up in a single parent home. And my parents weren't going to allow that. When I had you, you happened to be, you know, when we were married and you saw the badness of it. But at the same time, I can respect them that even though they weren't in love in the case of marriage and happy and all that, they made it work somehow."
Yeah.
But to me, here's the part that was baffling. Y'all settled for 30 plus years because of children. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. So whoever's watching this, please don't take it a bad thing. But think about that emotionally. Like you're not with the person you actually are supposed to be with, or yet you probably were and you just didn't feel it. That's deep to me, yo.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why you got so many side families from back in the day. I mean, to be quite honest with you. So actually, I want to say something to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Rob. And it is a bit of a tangent, but I think there's some connection. So a lot of times when I see these posts about gender roles and how if I get a husband, I'm not paying no rent and this, that, and the third, or blah, 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 blah. Or if I get a wife, I'm not doing no dishes, this, that, and the third, because that's how they used to do it back in the day.
Brand.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I don't do gender roles well.
But I know, but I mean, you see this stupid shit on like in like some of these groups. I mean, and I'm just gonna call it for what it is. It's stupid as fuck. But I mean, I think a lot of times there's always some way to try to connect it to how things used to be. When I listen to a lot of people talk about their parents' relationships and their grandparents' relationships, yeah, they were together for a while, but they didn't look like they were happy. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like my I mean, and I'll give a perfect example. Like my grandfather, right? He was like a typical West Indian man. Like my grandmother didn't work. You know what I mean? He took care of everything, and like a typical West Indian man, knocked her up with like about 9 or 11 kids, maybe some more on the side or whatever. But the thing is, when he died, she didn't have shit. I mean, she had a house that she paid for, right? But she didn't really have anything, and she didn't have any viable skills because she never worked. Oh, and in addition to that, my grandfather had a couple of mistresses on the side that she knew about. So, like, yeah, they still held to those traditional gender roles, but they didn't. And ain't shit you can tell me to. My grandmother loved my grandfather, but I know she wasn't happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's just something that's just really interesting to me, where a lot of people that I talk to within our generation, they saw marriages and relationships, but not necessarily very well functioning marriages and relationships. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was all I had to say on that.
I mean, I think for me, the take it or leave it, right? Like I've been married. I saw my parents were married and then got divorced. And there was a point where I asked my mother, like, why are you dealing with this? Like, I love my dad and that's my dude. But as a husband, like, he's showing up real trash, right? And this was me like
Right.
high school. And so I was like, why are you, what's good? And she was like, oh, we're staying together for you. And I was like, let me be clear. I'm good. Don't stay here for me.
I asked that same question when I was 13. I may not have acted like I knew a child's place at that age, but I legit remember asking, why don't y'all get a divorce? Why? Like, because I remember my mom always preaching to me, find a man that can at least meet you halfway. Don't get in a position where you have to take care of a man. I never understood what that meant until I really paid attention to them. And I was like, well, dang, he do got 2 other kids with 2 other women. Child support got to get paid somehow. And she, on paper, she made more than him because she was a teacher, but she also had a college degree. She had 2 degrees and other incentives. And he went into the military, that era, he went straight into the military. And then that was it. He came out and started his life. And I do remember asking that all the time because I never understood it. I'm just like, why are y'all still together? And I know, just if you look at my parents, both sides of the family, my mom's family is the type, they're in your face, want to know how your day was, want to know how you're doing, lovey-dovey hugs, give me kiss, give me love you. If you don't say I love you, if you don't celebrate me, you don't love me. Like, they're in your face. My dad's side of the family has always been cold and heartless. So when I looked at I never met my mom's parents because they passed before I was born. But my dad's parents, I grew up with them until they passed. And to see them interact on Sunday dinner, I was attached to my grandmother at the hip. She was one of the most loving people I knew. But when she interacted with my grandfather, like he even up through before he had Alzheimer's, he was like one of those, he acted hateful. Like he would give the grandkids money for Christmas, but it seemed like as I got older, it felt like it was more out of obligation. Like, grandma said, you better get them children money, so I'm going to do it. It was like there was never any love and hugs in that family. So they treated the in-laws like outsiders. So that's why I said, for years, I always took into consideration my parents' opinions with the people that I brought around them because of the things I saw. Like, they're not hugs on that side. So whenever I was looking at my mom, like, why you put up with this? Like, I'm like, Fran, why are you putting up with this? Like, I didn't even have a relationship with my father, all those years. So it was like, because of what I saw, I was protective. I was like, nah, I may not believe in divorce, but what I'm not going to do is stay in a situation where I'm being treated mentally, verbally, just any old kind of way. Like, nah, if we got to sign some papers and go through court, then so be it. But I'm not going to sit in a situation where I don't even love you. I don't even like being around you or being in love with you or for the sake of any kids. Like, I'm sorry, I am not my grandparents. I am not my ancestors. If we got to go to divorce court, then so be it. I'm not going to be that example for my child because I've watched some of my older friends deal with marriage and divorce. And I'm like trying to explain to them, like, do you not see how your kids are acting out? That's a reason for that. Like this whole marriage that you're trying to hold on to for them, it ain't working. It's not working. Like, why do that to the kids? Like, I always felt like trying to hold on for the kids is more detrimental to the kids than helping. Like,
it absolutely is.
Because we're seeing the hatred being spewed back and forth, whether you think we're listening or paying attention or not. We're seeing those underhanded comments. We're hearing you at night in that closed bedroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're staying in a child's place by not interfering in adult business, but you can still hear that. Like, you can still see when your parents are not happy. And I saw a lot of that between grandparents and parents. So it's like, how much of a help is it for you to stay married because of what the old days told you had to happen? I'm like, it's not written in the law. I just never got it. I'm like, it's not written in the Bible nowhere that you got to stay married. Like, I'm sorry, if you're unhappy or any kind of abuse is taking place, why subject yourself to that? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, why subject yourself to that? As much as I believe in marriage, I'm not going to stay somewhere where I'm not wanted or appreciated.
Right. And to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, yeah, I think there's like this misconception that staying together for the kids is like the way to go. And I can speak from experience. I mean, thank God, my parents are still married. But I saw some shit with them, especially when I was a teenager, that kind of always sticks with you. And, this kind of goes back to, what I was saying about being in like a loving home. Like for a couple of years, I say, yeah, 2 to 3 years. I was just like, okay, when y'all just gonna get this shit over with? Like, I'm tired of hearing y'all fight. I'm tired of hearing y'all scream. Like, I'm tired of hearing this shit like every night. Like, when y'all just gonna get it over with? You know what I'm saying? Because like, and then, you look back on it like, damn. Now I see like why my mom would just get pissed off at like small shit, that I would do like sometimes because like she's pissed off. And the same thing with my father, right? So, so whether you know it or not, that always bleeds into the household that you present to your kids and even how you interact with your kids sometimes. So yeah, that's, sticking with it for the kids, I think personally is just way more detrimental than just getting it over with and figuring out a healthy way to co-parent, which doesn't always happen either, but
And more so for little girls, because you got to think
Right.
like, when you hear stories of females who are being, in domestic violence situations, a lot of times I've seen where they're like, well, I saw this all my life, so they think it's okay.
Right.
So it's like when
Right.
you're married to someone who's verbally abusing you, it can trickle down in that same mentality. Like you got a little girl growing up thinking that it's okay for a man to treat you that way, or for a man to belittle you or degrade you verbally. Like you're thinking that that's okay, and you start rocking with that to the point, and then you find yourself in one of those domestic violence situations, or you find yourself always miserable or trying to hold it together because divorce ain't an option, or because we got kids. Like I look at that like that can be borderline a control thing. You know what I'm saying? Because you mess around and get with that type of dude that sees that your mentality is showing, oh, well, she likes when I yell at her, then you start end up in a control issue type situation in your marriage or your relationship. So I'm like, that there are so many different things that could harm the situation when you have kids involved.
Or like with young ladies continuing to date like players. Like, I mean, if you see your dad, especially like daddy's girls, right? Because I see this all the time, and I hear about this all the time. Like, where women will say, my dad was a great dad, but he was a horrible husband, because like, maybe he had like some things on the side, and I think like subconsciously that leads you to maybe let certain things by a little bit more than you should. But anyway, so I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead, man. I didn't mean to. Because I know we gotta start wrapping this up soon.
Hey, we let y'all have it out, man. Just go ahead and let it out tonight.
Hey, man, you just made me glad I didn't have my tequila with me tonight.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. With that being said, great conversation tonight with the crew. We talked about meeting the parents, talked about is marriage worth it? Like, what, is it? Is it? But anyway.
Is it worth it to get busy in your parents' bed? I mean, like all that.
Well, we didn't say that. We just have that just happened. You know what I'm saying? And Fran will judge you if you did, okay?
Scratch that from the recording. Scratch that.
With that being said, we appreciate y'all tuning in tonight in YouTube land. We appreciate you guys rocking with us. This is going to probably be the format from here on out. We will see you guys next month, next time on Unveiling His and Hers Truth. For Miss Francie, for Miss Cena, for Mr. Kamal, myself, Rob C. Peace. Have a good night, y'all.